as we know, if in 1963, all of us, all our elders knew that they were Indian, the question is, why didn't they tell the generations after? Why didn't they tell the generations after? Why didn't they tell the generations after what their birthright was?
Of all the people buried here in historic Hollywood Cemetery, including presidents, generals, and statesmen, few have had the impact of Dr. Walter Plecker. His stormy legacy continues today.
Plecker was a menace to Virginia Indians over many years.
Well, Dr. Plecker was convinced that there was a need to purify the white race. He thought that he was preserving the Commonwealth of Virginia, that he was maintaining the United States of America, and most importantly to him, that he was protecting the white race.
For 34 years, starting in 1912, Dr. Plecker was the director of the state's Bureau of Vital Statistics, carefully compiling birth and death records. Anyone who had one drop of other than white blood was listed as colored. They were mongrels, in his view.
If you boys can read so good, how come you missed that sign on the door over there?
Oh, that sign on the door that we just... How come we didn't see that sign that say no colors allowed?
Virginia Indians particularly felt his wrath. Quote, like rats when you're not watching, he wrote, they've been sneaking in their birth certificates through their own midwives.
You know, we couldn't claim we were Indian. It was against the law to say we were Indian. It was against the law to say we were Indian. It was against the law to say we were Indian. What do we claim? You know, we're not black and we're not white.
Whole groups of people who formerly were recognized among the tribes of Virginia simply disappeared from the records. They were no longer considered to be Native Americans or Indians, as they were called. Their children were not recognized as members of the tribes, and they're living with that legacy right now.
Plecker and his many supporters believed not only that races should never intermarry, they shouldn't even mingle. Strict segregation would last for generations.
We blame Plecker, but he gave it to a very hungry audience. They ate it up.
Indeed, Plecker was seen as a heroic figure in an era when genetic engineering was becoming mainstream. The eugenics movement was white supremacy cloaked in science. Its supporters were many and influential, from leading academics at University of Virginia to wealthy industrialists. The Richmond Times-Dispatch editorialized in 1924 that racial intermingling would ruin the white man. Quote, once a drop of inferior blood gets in his veins, he descends lower and lower in the mongrel scale. That was the year the General Assembly passed the Racial Integrity Act, narrowly defining race and making it illegal for whites to marry anyone of any other race. Plecker wrote to the governors of the rest of the states, urging them to pass similar laws to save the white race. The Racial Integrity Act, which Plecker pushed, stood until 1967, when the appropriately named Loving case about an interracial couple led to a U.S. Supreme Court reversal. But the damage to Virginia's Indian tribes continues. There are more than 560 federally recognized Indian tribes in the country, but none of Virginia's tribes, the ones that helped the settlers survive, have that crucial recognition, because Walter Plecker did everything he could to destroy evidence of their existence.
Unless you are, and you know for a fact that you are, the descendant of somebody that was brought here from Africa as a slave, stop claiming that, because most of you are not descendants of people that were brought here from Africa as slaves. During the whole entire slave trade, less than 3% of all the slaves traded, less than 3% of them were brought here from Africa. Now, if in fact your ancestors are amongst those people, then claim it and claim it with pride, because they survived. But stop claiming things that you have no evidence of just because somebody told you in school that that is your story, because they said it's not your story.